Imagine Alice Cooper with about 1/100th the money.
If the Cramps had been a heavy metal band.
Crazy as H, blood-splattered, ear-splitting hilarity.
The Wizard of Oz meets splatter horror films.
The gag is, you're in the splash zone.
You're covered with goo and blood, and if you're not completely soaked, you didn't have a haunted garage show.
It's like going to a horror movie, except it's actually happening.
It's basically walking into the most brutal, gory film right in front of your face.
It was probably the best part of my life.
I think of him as a guy with commitment to his art.
That's Dookie. I mean, he wants to take it as far as he can take it.
You gotta see this band.
Wait a minute, you're gonna get this.
Oh, thank you.
Hello, why does it keep doing this? It's me, Kevin Vonesper. There I am. Hello, welcome to the GWAR Pod. It's me, Kevin Vonesper. Hope you're having a lovely Sunday afternoon here. I guess it's afternoon here in New York. If you're in LA, man, it's way early. Thanks for being here. Oh man, we got Brad Roberts today. I don't think he does a lot of press, so this is very exciting, and we're going to find out why. Let's just jump right into it, you guys. I'm going to play the theme song, and then we're going to talk to Brad. Don't forget, join in the chat. We got the comments going. You can do the super chats if it gets real crazy, or if you just want to appreciate me, that would be really cool. Let's do it. It's the GWAR Pod, early Sunday edition.
GWAR Pod comes from on GWAR Pod. GWAR Pod. GWAR Pod. GWAR Pod.
Hello, welcome to the GWAR Pod.
Hey, how you doing, Kevin?
I'm good. How are you doing?
It's good. It's a great day. Great day.
Yeah. So
what are we getting into?
Yeah, what are we getting into? I got a page of notes here, and I got some toys around me. I think we'll figure something out. Do you do a lot of press, or do the other guys just kind of jump in front of you for that? Do you like doing press? What?
Well,
how come we don't hear from you as much?
When you're the drummer and you're kind of in the back behind the drums, the lead singers are usually gonna be the focal point and take up most of that, and then of course anybody in the room with Dave Rocky,
right,
he was pretty much the center of attention, so you don't get a lot of chances to get to it. But we kind of share the load, but we leave that a lot to what's current, or both are the current singer, or it depends on what topic you're talking about, who you talk to as well.
Sure. Yeah. I thought that was really interesting, like the post-Dave era where more people got some more voices like in the spotlight. And I was like really into that.
Yeah, I thought it worked really well, and we thought it was kind of important too, because Dave is such a huge character and huge personality to sort of compete with. So we felt like we had to bring all the forces and everybody, get a shot in there so that we could still, push GWAR forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's go. I want to talk about before GWAR first, because I don't hear a lot about that, at least from your end. And I'm going to go to my trusty, whoops, why does it keep doing I'm sorry, guys, my program. What's going on here? There it is. This is the trusty family tree. Oh, sorry. I'm getting my formats right. Okay, here we go.
Who made that? It looks
that's a good question.
A Hunter Jackson, Bob Gorman, something collaboration.
I'm gonna guess Bob. I don't know. It's in your big giant book here that I have. That's where I got it from. Tell me about the others and Rosebud. I don't think I've ever actually heard these bands.
Yeah, these are high school bands that I was in. Basically, it's the same band. It started as the others. We did a citywide high school competition, like 50 acts all over the city of Richmond, from baton twirlers to magicians to bands to whatever it was that the talent was, and there's about 50 acts, and you had 5 minutes like a stand-up comic. We got up and we played one original song because I don't, we didn't play too many covers. We kind of started writing songs from the beginning and when we were in high school. And we, oddly enough, we won that talent show out of all the city high schools combined. And the prize was you got a recording session. So that was the first time we got to go in the studio and record some of the songs we had written. So I think we recorded about 4 songs in 2 days and mixed them in another day. And that was sort of the start, of, all right, I think I'm going to be in a band,
Wow. Did you have any other bands before those, or were these like the real start of your career?
Yeah, those are the start. Like, I had friends that were in other hardcore bands and stuff, and we were big into the hardcore scene in the early 80s when we were in junior high school and high school. And I just didn't have the opportunity to be in a band. Some of my other friends had some hardcore bands, and I was like, well, that's really cool and stuff, but I actually want to play music.
Right. Yeah, that's my next question. What kind of band were those? Like,
yeah,
what kind of
they were progressive. They were kind of all over the place. There's a lot of influence, and my singer, and it's really the same band. It just transferred into Rosebud, and we got a different bass player, so we switched the name. And yeah, the influences, from Prince to hardcore to Hank Williams Sr. to to Brian Eno to King Crimson to Rush to Van Halen to to Black Flag to it's all over the place. So those 4 guys had a really good mix, and I guess you could say it was a little bit of a progressive kind of rock punk band. It wasn't like a true punk band at all. It was like those guys had really crazy tunes to make, and then I was cutting chops on drums to try to figure out how to play crazy stuff like that.
Right.
So I think it really helped early on.
Does those recordings exist anywhere, or like?
They do.
Are we ever gonna hear them?
Probably not from me.
Yeah.
They're not. I think our singer Lee Harris would have the archive on those. 4-song demo, and then Rosebud did a few things, but I'm not sure if Rosebud. Yeah, we did a studio session as well. I just don't know where all that stuff ended up. I think I actually have the tape of the first recording from the others, the reel to reel. But other the mixed tracks or recordings, I wouldn't know where they were. I'm sure he's got versions of them, probably on cassette. It was so old.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, that must have been the late 80s, I'm guessing.
Yeah, mid 80s. Yep, early to mid 80s.
And then did you do anything between those bands and GWAR, or was GWAR like the next thing?
GWAR, I did construction. That's what I did.
Well, yeah, musically. So construction, that was the industrial band.
Yeah, no, that was just they broke the band up, and they said they wanted to like go in the studio and just track and be some sort of wimpy Steely Dan horse shit. And I was like, no, I want to be in a band and tour and, like do this. And then it was just, a year or so afterwards that I got a call from Mike Bishop and asked if I wanted to audition for GWAR.
So had you known him from what, like The Guilty, or did you?
Yeah, Rosebud and The Guilty. Yeah, Rosebud and The Guilty had played shows together.
That's another band I really want to hear, The Guilty.
They were good. They were cool. They're big hips. Excuse me. Their big song was this Watermelon song.
Oh, really? I never heard that.
That Bishop sang. And excuse me, I got something in my throat.
Yeah, go ahead, man. I'm gonna take a drink myself, wake myself up. We lost an hour last night, so it's like I'm a little disoriented.
It's true. Sorry about the time switch too. We just
no worries, man. Got to appease the scumdog lords. I'm glad that you're here. Okay, so were you ever part of like the Dairy crew at all? Did you ever hang out there or see Death Piggy or any of that stuff?
I saw Death Piggy, because they were in town, a lot back in those days. And, I didn't know Dave from Death Piggy. The first time I remember Dave was the first hardcore show I ever went to see, which was COC, the Necros, and Johnny Quest.
Wow.
And it was in the shitty club called PB Kelly's, which is kind of famous in the hardcore era in Richmond.
Well, that's where the first GWAR show was, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really know of the Dairy and all that stuff. I was a little younger and in the high school scene, and I would just go downtown to see as many hardcore shows or any shows I could hitchhike to or catch a ride to, because we were all underage.
Right.
So by the time I got into GWAR, the dairy was already kind of dismantled, and GWAR had moved into the Broad Street address, which was across from Rockets /
Okay,
Metro.
gotcha. Yeah. So, yeah, how did you, so Mike was the one who called you? I was going to ask, like, who was actually in GWAR at the time that you auditioned? Because it was kind of like fell apart a little bit around that time, right?
Yeah, it was Dirks was playing guitar. He'd been in for a little while and just finished up a U.S. tour with him.
Okay.
And then it was Bishop, and Dewey Rowell was the original flautist, and Dave. And it was all the other cast of characters: Danielle, Chuck, Hunter, Don, Mike Bonner, Scott Crawl. They were all there. And that was it. He got a call, and he really gave me a reference. Was an old high school buddy of mine, Joey Boisno, and he had a hardcore band that was very well known in Richmond called Graven Image. And they all tried out Joey, thinking Joey would be a great fit for GWAR. But Joey comes from a Catholic family, and it just wasn't his vibe. So he's just like, no, but you guys ought to try out Brad. I think Brad's a fit for this. So I always blame him for getting me the auditions and the job for GWAR.
Had you seen GWAR before?
You know, oddly enough, I hadn't. I'd always missed it. They come and they play a lot, and for some reason it just wasn't the scene I was in at the time. And or I would just go to some show and be like, oh, well, GWAR just played here last night, and I'd be like, shit, I couldn't get down for that show or whatever.
But it was kind of like local legend though, right?
Yeah, like everyone knew him and I knew him. I was like, oh, I want to see GWAR, and they'd be like, they're on tour, you know. I'm like, what? They're on tour? Real cool, you know. Like they're already left town, you know, where the rest of us were just playing, opening up for whoever came to town.
Sure, yeah. Do you remember, so I think maybe it was in the documentary that you talk about your audition where you listened to a bunch of people play the songs and then you came in, right?
Yeah, there was like all three guys on like the same day or the same couple of days. So we all came back like a couple of times. And there was this one older guy, Rudy, I think was his name. And he had like built this drum set like out of trash cans and all kinds of crazy drums. It was really, you know, it had the cool punk vibe and do it yourself kind of thing, but he was kind of old and his style wasn't really, you know, cutting edge enough for GWAR. I think GWAR was going in another direction, but you know, he was at least kind of original in his artistry and his playing, and he created this drum set and built it himself and all this kind of stuff.
Interesting.
And then the other guy that auditioned was Ed Trask, who later became the drummer. Drummer of Keypone. He's a great mural artist, very famous here in Richmond.
Right.
And, Ed didn't even have a drum set, but they knew he was a drunk and a drummer, so they tried him out. But he played my kit, so whatever Ed played on my kit for their audition, I was like next up, so I would just go play my kit and just play it better.
Right. Do you remember?
Anyway, so yeah.
What songs they were playing? What songs you auditioned to?
We auditioned Black and Huge and Horror of Yig and maybe like Vlad the Impaler. They were working on Scum Dogs.
Yeah.
They'd gotten most of the material written until they got me, and then once I got the band, we finished up the songs for that record.
Yeah, I heard those demos compared to the album. You really shaped those songs up, I would say.
Yeah, the funny story that they always told me when I got in the band was they always used to get made fun of, you know, because you're looking at the spectacle, so you're not paying much attention to the music.
Right.
And they were talking about this one time they played Fafoons, which is a famous club in Montreal, and that's where Voivod is from. And Voivod's a huge influence on GWAR from way back. Those guys are great.
Yeah, and you got to tour with them in recent years too, right?
We did, but the story I got before I got in the band was GWAR would play Fafoons with Voivod early on, and Michelle or Piggy or one of the guys from Voivod just told GWAR, like, there are three things your band lacks: tuning, timing, and tempo. And then we always
I think Mike
really
Bishop
funny.
told me that story on this show. Yeah,
exactly. So the idea was like, okay, get somebody in who can give them at least the timing and tempo part, and they'd have to figure out how to tune their guitars later.
Right. Yeah, I think you definitely brought that to the band. Do you know anything about this this Dave Grohl situation that they wanted him to play in GWAR?
Yeah, you know, Dave, we'd see him around in backyard parties because he played in a band called Scream.
Yeah.
Before he left to go out to Seattle and with Nirvana and all and create all that history. But that was really before, like he'd already left. By the time GWAR came back, like from their 88, 89 tour and were auditioning drummers, Dave was already gone.
Oh, so it wasn't in your audition process. It was like before that.
Yeah, I mean, they had always talked about it because everybody knew everybody, and they all knew that he was a formidable drummer in town. And Scream was already this band that was really well established, you know, as established as any local band, you know, in the DC Richmond area. But by that, Dave was already in Seattle. It was just like what they hoped. There was a pipe dream. They wished they could have gotten Dave Grohl probably.
Well, yeah. Well, hey, they got you instead.
He might not have got it. He might not have got the gig though, because he doesn't play any double bass, and that's an element that GWAR was looking for. They had also tried out Chris Contos from Machine Head when they were in California.
Right, I read that. Yeah.
And Chris Contos was too much double bass for GWAR because GWAR was still punk, you know.
And he wanted to get paid, right?
Yeah, they wanted to parody metal in a way that was, you know, satirical and kind of poking fun at metal. Like, hey, it's not really that hard to play. It can be, and it can be enjoyable. But like the attitude of GWAR in those days was just like, all right, what can we do to poke fun at everything? And music was definitely not off the list, you know.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, we need to have this punk flavor, but we need a little bit of double bass too to get us into the next area. And Chris had too much, and I bet Dave Grohl probably wouldn't have had enough, actually.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he's a great drummer, obviously, but it might be not the right fit.
Exactly. Yeah, that would have been interesting. Like, it might not have worked out so well. Yeah. I can't imagine Scumdogs with his playing on it, you know, compared to like Nevermind.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, and skipping forward, like, do you think I always told people, like, you know, GWAR is a punk band that parodies metal, you know, and they would always go back to that punk sort of ethos. Do you feel like the band got too much of a metal band at some point in the career, like kind of lost that spirit?
I don't think it lost the spirit, because the spirit is always DIY and you know, pull up from your bootstraps and all of that stuff. So I think the intent is always there. So we just would apply the intent in other areas. And obviously different players that we've had over the years give you different sounds. So we would tend to move into other realms and try to stay current, you know, with what's going on, but still remain kind of true to what GWAR was about. And a lot of different players helped with that. And I think GWAR is just like that animal. You just can't tell it what to play. We're going to play whatever we want, and it's going to be as punk as GWAR can be, no matter what it is, whether it's a country shuffle song or a metal song. But just the look of us, though, obviously, you know, it just screams metal. So I can see where we might have been pigeonholed there, or people would obviously assume we're a metal band first off, because it's just the look of it, you know. But behind all that stuff is still just punk attitude.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about your character a little bit. Jizmak Da Gusha. Tell me the origin. How much like input did you have into creating your character at the time, or did they kind of just throw it at you?
Well, that was the thing. They were trying to figure out. Hunter was trying to figure out, you know, what kind of costume to make me, and they had some pretty simple, you know, terrible drummer costumes before with nippleless with a bone through the head, and you know, drummers can't wear all that much. Can't wear big shoulder pads because we got to move. So the drummer costumes were never really as good or as cool. So we tried to make a character that was like at least had a theme to it, whether it's this dog bat shaped kind of, you know, thing. But they let me come up with the name. I just came up with the name, and they were like, yeah, whatever, that's fine. It'll work, you know, Jizmak, Ballsack, it all, you know, like it wasn't as well thought out as some of the other names in GWAR, you know. So they were like, yeah, you keep that stupid name, kid. We got better, you know. I'm odorous, you know. You're fine. I'm techno, you know. But it was cool. They let me have as much input as I could have, you know, which is what GWAR is. This collaboration of minds and getting new people in to give you new ideas and give you a fresh shot in the arm. So it's still happening today with Tommy, our new guitar player, man. It's just great. It's just keeps rolling like that.
Tommy's great. I can't wait to see his character develop. Like, Tommy was actually on my other show on YouTube, like a year before he was in GWAR. So technically haven't had him on this show yet, but he has been on the channel, and we're waiting, to see. We need some more history, some more stuff to talk about, So
Absolutely.
we're gonna wait to get him back. Let's get some questions. Do you know why Lee Beto or Hans Orifice didn't stay in GWAR? Well, I think one of them was dissolved in acid or something like that, right?
Yeah, the GWAR mythos goes. I think those guys just were temporary fixes. I think one guy did actually go crazy and went and sat in a hotel room. After the third show in GWAR, he kind of lost his mind a little bit. Or they were doing a lot of drugs back then. I'm not sure. But he stayed in the hotel room and he wouldn't come out. And, and everybody was just like, fuck this. Let's get somebody else.
Yeah, you need a little bit of stability. Even if you're getting drunk or whatever, it's like, you got to do the show, right?
But I'm sure there was a crazy hazing process to those guys before I got here. Like, it was probably the Wild West of GWAR. It was just reckless abandon, and they were out of college, and they were all fresh and young and wanted to party and do crazy, stage stuff. So I'm sure those guys had it pretty raw in the beginning there.
Well, you did get a little bit of the school bus action, right?
Oh, yeah, but I was on both, the original school bus and then the one we had tailored for the Scumdogs tour,
Yeah, right on. We got a question here. What drums were you using when you joined GWAR?
Yamaha drums. Yeah, this is the kit I had, and I'm back with Yamaha today. So.
Nice. Full circle, huh?
Yeah.
Nice. And then, so I was never a member, unfortunately, and I kind of wish it would come back so I could be, but you used to do the Total Slavery Club, right?
Yeah, we had a fan club for a little bit, and I was just happened to be the point person to be in charge of the merch and deal with all the fan letters and fan club stuff. So
yeah, what kind of stuff were you doing? And is it ever going to come back, you think? Is that too much work?
Social media kind of changed, the way fans and bands interface, including this podcast, really. So, it used to be great to get some cool free stickers and a letter from from the band that you liked in the mail, but we don't rely on that anymore.
Right.
There's still VIP experiences, if you want to meet the band and stuff that we do every single tour. And I don't know, we like the fan club idea. We just don't know how to implement something where, it's the KISS Army, it's the GWARmy, everybody who comes to 2 shows, they're already in, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Let's go back to Jizmak for a second. So
bastard.
Is your head a dog, or are you wearing a dog? What's the story there? Do you have a face?
That's it.
Oh, nice.
I do. I'm in this sucker.
Well, yes, I know the human is underneath, but the character, is that supposed to be his face, or is he wearing a face?
I think it's supposed to be his face, but obviously for practical purposes, I am under it.
Of course.
But, yeah.
I wonder the same about Ballsack, because it's is the trap his face, or is he wearing the trap over his face? We just never get to see it.
Yeah, he's got to wear the trap over. His face was rotted away with syphilis, so he put the bear trap on so no one would see his hideous under.
I think there was some kind of mythos about you guys being brothers. Is that true?
I just when I was 20 looking for a cool GWAR name and had no idea what the mythos of the band really was, and I just sort of mimicked and tailored something that they already had, and I'm just always like, oh yeah, I'm the distant cousin, because they have all this lore about we're different from different planets and we're from outer space, and we can introduce all these characters like Bone Snapper that we left out there that didn't come with the original. You can just add to it. So I was like, yeah, Jizmak. He's like Ballsack's cousin.
Gotcha.
That was good enough.
And what's the whole thing about the Pope's nose? I never understood that story. So you're wearing the Pope's nose or something like that?
Yeah, I had this belt that was like a mouth and a tongue, and then I had the chest piece with the Pope's nose, and I think it was just something that Hunter made up while he was making the costume. That's
so random. I never was where did that come from?
It's just like one of the many GWAR stories that we take all the biblical stories and we convert them to GWAR, like Sodom and Gomorrah and Noah and the Ark and all that things. So it was just some sort of off story that Hunter had probably made up where, Jizmak had been in the Vatican and somehow stolen the Pope's nose and done other atrocities and,
Right. So it's like, okay, Flatus created the Sahara Desert and you did something with the Pope's nose. You know, that's
Yeah,
like your part of the story.
Exactly. So just
Yeah.
sort of to weave me in, but Bob and Matt, and Dirks, those guys really are historians and really have like all the storylines locked in their brains,
Right.
way more than I would about, Bob could probably find any particular one thing that we did and pull it out of a archive somewhere and tell you.
Oh yeah.
And Matt'll can elaborate on all the different histories and different characters of GWAR articulately, probably more so than a lot of other members in the band. I'm just not that guy.
Right. Yeah. Well, do you
I know my piece a little bit,
Yeah. No, I love talking to those guys about that stuff. I had Bob on the show recently, and it was all about the archive and the mythos and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of say in like the storyline going forward, or in the past? Do you kind of stay out of that?
Well, right now we've got some pretty strong writers with Dirks and Matt, and then we've got a couple of friends of ours, the Granger brothers, that have collaborated with out of Vancouver, and and Bishop, and there's enough. I don't need to drive the stories forward, but we all sit in meetings and we'll throw 2 cents in. Like, oh, I think my character should say this, or wouldn't it be funny if GWAR rode in on horseback to 7-Eleven to get cigarettes and Slurpees, or whatever the storyline is going. But for the most part, this new comic, I think it's been, Dirks and Matt at the forefront, and then we're all just kind of weaving in little things here and there.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. I think those were my costume and how about the name? Can you elaborate on how you got the Jizmak? I know there was a story in the book about, but I want to hear you say it. Jizmak Da Gusha.
Yeah. Was there a story? We put that in the book?
Yeah, something about like an old commercial you saw.
Yeah, that's right. So if you're growing up in the early 80s and you're a teen, you probably remember a show called Dallas, which was like an old soap opera, but it came on at nighttime. It was a big thing when you only had 3 channels to watch. And it was like Who Shot JR and all this stuff, all that. If anybody remembers, we're showing our age. But there was one actress on there, and as like a 13 or 14-year-old boy, she was pretty hot. It's Victoria Principal. And Victoria Principal on that show and all those guys, they were so popular, they would have spin-off commercials all the time because they were the biggest thing on TV. I think Who Shot JR was like one of the biggest episodes ever watched in TV history, other than like a Super Bowl or something at the time. So she had this spin-off commercial where it was Germac shampoo. And so as a filthy little teenager, I just always imagined that Victoria Principal was just lathering in Jizmak shampoo, my jizz, into her hair as I'm probably touching myself watching these, because she was like half naked in the shower during the 80s commercials. Like, it was pretty risque for then. So that's why I came up with the name. I was like, oh, Germac shampoo, Jizmak. It's just, she's just lathering in jizz into her hair.
And what about, go ahead.
That's it. That's like my dirty little fucking 13-year-old dream.
And what about the changing the to da? Was there any story behind that or thought?
No, I think it just rang funny. Better,
Yeah.
Obviously got to keep in drummer form. You're not gonna be known as the smartest guy in the group, even though it's usually not true in most cases. But just to have, and also the 80s had all the other dumb spellings of stuff like boys and rules and all that crap. So we were just tapping into some of that stuff that was going on.
Right on.
Everything with a Z on the end of it. So we did the Gusha.
Yeah. Hey, you got Total Slavery number 901 in the chat room. So how about that?
Thanks for your service, your dedication, and your children. Thank you.
Yeah. And then Humongous has a silly question here. What would you say Jizmak's favorite leg to hump and rip off? I don't know if that's a complete sentence, but I think you get the point.
Yeah, the last one.
The last one.
The last one that went.
Oh, someone said, I always thought Da Gusher was the way that Sleazy pronounced Da Gusher.
Could be. Maybe that is where it came from. He's got a nice slang, a nice meter to his character.
Yeah. So let's do some general questions. Like, do you have any favorite like GWAR album? What's your favorite GWAR album? Do you have one?
The ones we've been doing recently, oddly enough, to say, you know, a lot of the old classics are great, but those days, you know, things were tough and cheap and tormented, and like I would have really bad experiences trying to track GWAR records. I would just be like, just so I could get the angst of whatever the hell was going on onto the record through my playing, you know. So I don't remember a lot of GWAR records being all that much fun to record. And some of them were just downright miserable. The process or the people or the argument or whatever the hell was going on at the time in the band, you know. But some of the newer ones, definitely the you know, the Blood of Gods and the New Dark Ages.
Yeah.
This recent EP that's going to be coming out this year on the 40th anniversary.
Ooh, there's an EP coming out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Breaking news.
Whatever it might be. I'm not supposed to talk about it, but anyway.
Oh, you didn't hear it here.
Doing stuff with Tommy, that's been really fun. So some of those experiences, it just comes down to the people and what the vibe is during the session, and the stuff we just did with Tommy is exceptional and super extremely fun to be in this band now after all this time.
That's awesome. Yeah, he brings such a great energy. I love watching him play.
Yeah.
And talking to him, he's just like a really cool dude, you know, like just knowing him a little bit before he joined GWAR is just like, oh shit, I'm like ahead of the curve now. It's really cool, you know, because he was here talking about Squid Pisser, you know, when that came out. He had the whole mask on and everything. It was great. Yeah, I always say the New Dark Ages. I think now this Toilet Earth is always going to be my favorite, and there's definitely a nostalgia factor there for me. But the New Dark Ages, I think, is probably the best GWAR album. If I were going to give someone a new GWAR album, like if they'd never heard the band and I was giving them something to listen to first, I'd probably give them the New Dark Ages.
Wow.
Because I think it's like the closest to the old band. You know, you got like the core, you and Bishop and Dirks back together, and like it's got that vibe, and the production is great too. So
yeah, absolutely. The producer Ronan on the last two records, he's an old school Richmond guy.
Yeah, he's an old like Derry dude, isn't he?
Yeah, he went off and became a big famous producer and produced King Crimson records,
right?
Italian prog rock, and he's awesome. And he knows us from the beginning, and he was in Richmond too. So he kind of remembers GWAR at the start. So he has a vision that comes from the same place as us. So like, I know what GWAR should sound like. Like, that's what I'm going to give you guys. Because I don't feel like you guys ever really got that in a lot of your older records.
Yeah.
And I was like, so when he started working with him, I think he kind of nailed it. You know, he knows how we play. He remembers us as kids playing. He remembers us in GWAR and our careers playing. So he's seen us the whole time. So he knows the type of players that we are and the type of musicians and the stuff that we're going for and the same mindsets. And he's able to translate all that garbage and confusion and then put it on a record and make it sound good.
And I think that record really highlights you a lot. There's a lot of like space for the drums in that record.
Yeah, it was just the writing. The writing was meant to be kind of chopped down, and let's get the lyrical content and the story and the mood across, and not have to be, you know, GWAR in the sort of early mid 2000 years when we had Corey and it was really metal and all that new metal stuff was going on and all these bands were starting careers. You know, that stuff's really busy. You know?
I know.
Sometimes it has more impact, you know, where we come from. It has more impact when the music has room to breathe or the lyrics have a minute to actually fortify what the message is at the time. You know, you don't need to overplay that stuff to be heavy. And that's the thing. We always think in the terms of heavy. We don't think in the terms of fast, you know, like Bay Area, you know, thrash, or you know, think of doom, you know, like Caius or whatever. Like, we just think of like, all right, what's heavy? Is it lyrically heavy? Is it musically heavy? Does it need a tempo that's quick? Does it need to be slowed down? So I think, at least I try to approach GWAR that way, because I don't care what we play, just as long as it has meat to it, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I agree with you 100% on that. And like going back to the Corey Smoot era, like I always did think, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm criticizing it or anything, but like the double bass was almost a crutch to that material. You know, it was always just all the time. Yeah. And now it's like a little more back to the old school, like like when you put on Scum Dogs and that double bass and Maggots comes on, you're like, oh, that's a treat.
Yeah, there's not much of it. Yeah, you know, that style of music maybe called for it. Also, I was probably, you know, with Corey learning kind of that style of music, new metal, and what to do with it, you know, because we don't really come from that same space, you know, because he was a lot younger.
Right, yeah.
You know, and into stuff that we hadn't even really dipped into yet, you know.
Yeah,
so that
like
was
some
cool.
8-string guitars or whatever crazy stuff going on there.
Yeah, and he was a great drummer. Like Corey wrote a lot of parts, like, and I was like, oh, that's good. I'm gonna use that and just make it mine a little bit. But that's
right.
I like. Why would I reinvent that? That's already done. You know?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, for that, I guess, does it depend on who the primary songwriter is? Like, how much you know, you have to input yourself into it?
Yeah, well, Corey was the first guy. Like, GWAR's way of writing is the old school. The 4 guys get in a room and we jam and we come up with riffs, and then we start picking them apart and putting them together, and then constructing them and deconstructing them, and, you know, all the things that you do to write a song. Or, you know, or some songs just come real quick and boom, we got it. Here's the 3 parts. But with Corey's the first guy that would just come with the whole song. He's like, here it is.
Yeah.
The whole song, start to finish, drums are on it, the bass is on it, everything. He's like, this is what I was thinking about the song. So there wasn't a lot to the nuance to collaborative, you know, but we also write songs in that era where we'd all do that. We'd all be in the room, we just come up with riffs, and then they would turn into songs, you know, over time. But yeah, every once in a while, Corey would just have like, I just wrote this last night, check it out. And we were like, perfect, let's play it. And that was how we did some of his stuff.
Yeah, if you listen to that, I think it was the Corey Smoot Experiment CD. It's like half of the GWAR album is on there, you know, in a different form.
Dave stole it. Corey's like, I'm working on my solo thing.
He's
and Dave was like, no, that shit sounds too good with 8-string guitars. We're stealing Zombies March and the whole thing. And I'll put lyrics to it, which Dave did wonderfully. I thought he did a really good job.
Let's see. What was the hardest song to play on GWAR song to play on drums? And his guest is Bone Snapper.
Yeah, Bone Snapper is a pretty busy song. That's really fun to play. I don't know if it's necessarily hard. Sometimes some of the simpler things were hard on stuff on New Dark Ages, where I was like having just, the song was so basic, I was having a lack of ideas. Like, what the hell am I going to put in here that has any kind of flavor that just doesn't sound like such a meatheaded kind of thing? So sometimes it's not always the busy songs that's the hardest. It's the one that I got to give more pocket to and like come up with something tasty, so it doesn't sound like you're just playing, you know, in a high school jazz band. So The Beast Will Eat Itself on the new record was kind of one of those songs, like, all right, everybody's gonna have to help me. What do I do here? Like, I don't even know where parts going, you know. But then once they form the vision, and you can tell, like, all right, here we go. Now we got parts. They have meat. You know, they have purpose. Yeah. They have purpose. Let me put some purpose to them. So
yeah,
Bone Snapper will wear you out, though. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Man, Ronan had those drums sounding good on that new record. Like, all the space for it, and like you can really tell. And yeah, I think it's the Beast Within.
I'm glad you like the new stuff. That's really nice to say, because, you know, everyone's going to revert to the classic Scum Dogs, or everyone's going to remember like the album that got introduced to GWAR. Yours might be Toilet Earth, as you mentioned. But those things, you know, the first time you see GWAR, it's definitely something you don't kind of forget, and sometimes you get stuck there. But it's cool that our fans have been with us all this time, and they have the ability to not get stuck on just the first thing they heard, and they can grow with the band. And
some of them do. Some of them do.
Well,
I don't.
That's easy. That's everybody. You know, I don't want to listen to Van Hagar. I want to listen to Van Halen. You know,
right? Exactly.
You know, everyone's like that to a degree. But if you really like the band and you're really interested in it, you do a deep dive, and then you get to appreciate all of it. And, you know, that's better than just saying, oh, I only like old Rolling Stones. Like, yes, I get it, but, you know, that doesn't help the band.
Right,
You're
I know.
that person, you know, like, if you still like the band, why wouldn't you want to find out and support it just so that the band you love keeps going? But if you just say, like, oh, I just like the old band with the old singer, well, then, okay, then we should have quit, right? According to those people, like, no way. It's not going to do that.
And you guys are still bringing in like new young fans. Like I always meet new people, like teenagers that are discovering GWAR still and like coming to the shows. And I think that's a testament to like you're doing something right. You know, you're still bringing in the youth.
Yeah, that's
not
cool.
Just a bunch of old dudes.
Yeah, that's cool that happens. I mean, we try to stay current, and GWAR can always, use current events for its satire and the parody and all the outrageousness and the death and sexual violence that we all love so much here in America. But
there's none of that happening anymore.
Yeah, well, I don't know how we did it. I mean, we have a lot of help doing it. We got management and publicists, and we got booking agents that put us in the right place and give us the right looks. And we do Warped Tour and gain new fans. We've done all that stuff over the career because we knew it was important. At some point, you're not going to write a song as an angry young man when you're 20 that you're going to write as a 50-year-old. You're just not going to write that song because you're not in the same space as you were when you were 20. So it's obviously it can't happen. So you go to new material and hopefully everybody likes it. I'm glad the kids still like it. I think the show's got to be a big part of it. We cut everything revolves around our live show. We know that we're not a radio band. We don't have gold records. We don't have big hits. We're not in certain scenes that were very popular in mainstream music. Or it's a very underground type of thing. I think we've always kind of liked it that way. It's very specific, caters to people that aren't sheep and they are forward thinkers and like what they like and don't give a fuck that anyone else doesn't like it. So those are our fans, and I love them. We'll keep generating new ones, hopefully that are that way. Think for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Who's producing the new stuff? Is there a producer?
I don't think I can speak to that. I might have already spoken too much, but no, we've already talked about him. Now,
okay.
I don't think there's a specific one. I think this latest stuff we do, it's just us. We have mixers and engineers and masterers and things like that, but we didn't hire on a producer to come do this. We wanted to figure out what the band was going to be and sound like with Tommy, and also just to get in the room and figure out how this band would write together, how Tommy writes, him figure out how we write, and just get that whole bouillabaisse going. So, and it worked really well. I mean, it was really fun. So I think it's a good fit. Tommy's the best.
Tommy's got some gnarly sounds coming out of that guitar. I'm sure we're gonna hear some of that stuff, Rick.
For sure.
Yeah. Let's go back a little bit again. So yeah, as you were saying, the first new GWAR album that I bought like the day of after I discovered the band was Ragnarok. So This Toilet Earth was the most current at the time.
Right.
Is that one of those difficult albums to record, or do you have any magical stories about that time? Because I don't know, something about that record just like really hits me and speaks to me, and it's like totally original. Nothing sounds like it, I feel like.
Well, cool. Thank you for that. That record was actually really interesting. That's right around the time we had two computer guys, Charlie O'Donovan and Ethan, getting us onto the internet. They were building these supercomputers at the slave pit and put us on the internet.
Yes, iuma.com/GWAR or whatever it was.
Yeah,
I remember that.
And that record was really interesting because we tried something with a producer we'd never done before, which is to, instead of track records separately, like, oh, you lay down the drums and then the bass and guitar and the vocals, it's all separate, so you don't have this connected performance. You're just playing to a click track, and then everyone comes in and does their part on top of the drums, which is the foundation. So that record was interesting. We got Rob Margoliouth as a producer, and he produced some really influential records for GWAR, like Freedom of Choice from Debo.
That was Ragnarok, wasn't it?
Yeah, Ragnarok.
No, I'm talking about This Toilet Earth.
Oh, you're talking about Toilet Earth. I'm talking about Ragnarok.
Oh, well, let's talk about Ragnarok first.
Well, no, we can talk about Toilet Earth. I don't care.
Oh, we're already talking about it. Yeah, you got the guy from Debo. Not from Debo. He produced Debo. That was an interesting sounding record.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, the Ragnarok thing was cool because we wanted to play it live all together, record it all at the same time. We recorded on digital tape, which was like the first time we'd ever even heard of that. Everything was analog tape before that.
Yeah, it was the first one with Casey too. And I always say like his bass sounds so clean that it's so weird for me to hear after hearing like Mike Bishop's dirty bass sound, like distorted bass sound.
And it was the time right between Toilet Earth and Ragnarok where those kind of digital and recording techniques were changing. Like new machinery was coming out, DA-88s, and you could record on digital tape. And then we recorded on a Sony reel-to-reel that was digital tape. We never even seen a machine like that or heard of that before. And the concept was try to we really liked Toilet Earth because we had really played those songs a lot. We'd done some ROG shows, I think, outside to test the songs, just play them live in front of people. And that whole record was really... There was some strife going on between Brocky and Bishop because Bishop was about to leave the band and go do Keystone.
Yeah, a lot of people I know. Sorry, I interrupted you.
We put the maximum amount of effort into the Toilet Earth, and I think Bishop did, especially because he didn't think it was going to be his last GWAR record, right?
He didn't think so, or he did think so?
Well, I think he did. I think he was intending to leave, and he was just sick of whatever bullshit that was going on in GWAR at the time.
Yeah,
which was usually a lot. Between the members, and he just wanted to do the other stuff to express himself musically that he couldn't do in GWAR, because GWAR's you can kind of write any song you want, but you kind of have to stick into this framework too.
So
you can't just write anything, but you can get away with a lot. So so yeah, we really played a lot of that record, but when we went to record Toilet Earth, we'd have to separately track everything, and then we were just like, you know what? We had all this great vibe and performance together. Why don't we try the next one, Ragnarok? Try to record it live. And it was, it was multi-track like any other studio record. We just played the tracks at the same time.
Right.
Like it wasn't like, all right, Brad's laying down drums today and Casey's doing bass tomorrow. It was like we laid down the songs together, however many takes it took, and we would fix things if we needed to or go in and punch stuff. But yeah, that was an interesting process compared to Toilet Earth, but the technology had changed, so we were trying to make this jump to like, all right, let's try something new. That was a fun record to make, and Toilet Earth was fun to make, except for watching people scream at each other in our band.
Yeah, I know. A lot of whenever I talk about that era, because it's like so special to me, and that includes the movie Skullhead Face. Like I always say, if GWAR only existed as an entity in that movie as a B movie, like it's one of the best B movies ever made, and I know there's a lot of crazy stuff going on with Pete got shot around that period and all that stuff, and it was like, I don't know, people like talking about it, but to me it's special, and hopefully there's something in it that you guys can appreciate as well.
Yeah, it is. All of that stuff really happened, and
then the movie kind of getting shelved and not really being released and
that's the idea, right? Your sophomore effort is the hardest one, and really, if you look at GWAR's career, the pinnacle of it, or when we're in the zeitgeist, is us, Beavis and Butthead, Grammy nomination, America Must Be Destroyed, coming off the success of Scumdogs. That was our moment. That was our break in, MTV News, all that. And then the next effort is Skullhead Face, the movie, and Toilet Earth and all that stuff. And it just didn't get back into that mainstream category. Like you said, the movie didn't really do much. And sort of the Grammy nomination was over, and the record was really good. I would have loved to have mixed Toilet Earth differently, but at the time it really worked, and I just thought like, oh shit, this is where we knew after that we were kind of going to fall short. It fell short. And what else happened? I think there was a distribution snafu.
Oh yeah, the
in there too.
Yeah, the Warner Brothers BBF.
Yeah, so all of those factors just led GWAR to not break through and be like this big mainstream, band like all the other bands of that era that you can think of, whether they were grunge or metal or so we never did that, but we stuck around, and all those other bands are kind of gone, except for
that's true,
Slayer or whoever, they're gone now too. So
I think they're back again. I don't know what's going on with them. Whatever. Who cares? That
was a crossroads for GWAR, so that record definitely had some meaning for everyone.
And that was who produced that? Scott Wolf. He was like your live engineer, or
yeah, good buddy of ours in Richmond. He was live.
I'd love to talk to him if anyone can get me in touch with Scott.
I think he's here in town. Yeah, he's here in town. I think,
and I agree.
I might have a number, or somebody's got a number for him. I'm sure we can track him down.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I agree though. That album definitely could use a remix. Do you think that'll ever happen?
I think it might happen. You know, I don't. It's the problem is you can only slate so much in a year's time.
Yeah, totally.
Catalog backwards to forwards again. So we just re-released the Hello, you know, thing.
Yeah.
So we're
but you didn't remix that at all. What's the deal? Well, I mean, I know you weren't involved with that record.
You can't. There's no recordings to be found of that.
Really?
So,
there's like no multi-track or anything?
As far as I know, that was a handshake deal that they did with Shimmy Disc in New York.
Yeah.
Who knows what Kramer from Shimmy Disc did with them, you know?
Right.
They're probably long gone. You're talking the late 80s, you know?
Yeah.
Studios moved, Kramer moved on, did whatever bands, you know? So that is what you get. What you get is what you get there.
Have you ever thought about doing like a modern re-recording of Hello? Because those songs like took definitely a new life once you joined the band, you know, like War Toy and Captain Crunch and like.
Yeah, there's some things we've done live with them that have been interesting, and sometimes we've recorded them. I guess we could pull some of that stuff out. It would have been interesting. There's always time constraints, so it would have been interesting. Like, oh, let's pull out some old live stuff. When we re-released Hello, like, oh, do we have anything where we played Time for Death or Arctic Snow, or War Toy or Slutman City live? You know, years later that we could just throw on, you know, as an extra bonus to that release, but. I think they did a great job with it, and we packaged it up the way we wanted with all kinds of extra goodies.
Yeah, it's still
from that
cool.
era that you wouldn't normally get to see. But I think there was some demo song stuff. They were just trying to stay true to the era. Like if you put something we recorded now live, that's one of those songs that wouldn't be what happened in that era. Bob,
No, it should be a separate thing, like the Scumdogs Live kind of deal, you know?
Yeah.
Because I love like the way you guys play those songs. Well, I mean, I say now, but I mean for the past 30 years past Hello, you know, like those really took a new life, especially when Pete joined the band. Like, oh my God, those songs were awesome. Is there any reason you don't play? I mean, I guess no one in the band was really involved with it except Bishop, but like you guys don't really play anything from Hello anymore.
Yeah, we have so many records now. You want to stay current and play the new stuff and play some of the old hits, which is mostly, you know, Scumdogs forward.
Right.
So I like playing some of those songs. We used to do a Hello medley that had like 5 or 6 songs in
saw
one.
that. Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
We could do that again.
That was like the 30th anniversary, I think. Or the 25th anniversary, actually, I think.
Yeah, probably 25th. That's the problem. You play songs like Pure as the Arctic Snow, they get misconstrued on their meaning in today's can't just
it's that's true. I guess that's a good point.
that's what I guess back in the 90s there's big skinheads at the shows all the time, all these metal shows, and or these punk shows they would show up too. And remember in Detroit there was a big skinhead faction, and they were like came up to someone in GWAR and like, yeah, I know what that song means, Pure as the Arctic Snow. We're like, what are you talking about? We're from Antarctica. And he thought it was like some kind of thing that was speaking to him. And I was like, just goes to show, man, anybody can get whatever they want out of a song.
Right.
Not what the writer intended at all.
Yeah, that's
pick your own meaning out of your songs that you love, right?
Yes. Let's see. Wasn't Ragnarok recorded at the Slave Pit? No, was it?
Yeah.
It was?
Oh, wow. Recorded at the old Chamberlain spot. They
All
brought
right.
in a mobile live recording truck.
Sounds really good.
Yeah. It's a really clean record. There's not a lot of distorted and ugliness on it. It was recorded clean. It was meant to sound like really tight and really compressed and everything. It was just that style at the time.
Yeah. Okay. Here I got Humongous, and then Jim, I got you next. Are you still doing cameos? Because Humongous Fungus needs one.
Yeah, I am still doing cameos, but I've been working here and there. So sometimes I turn it off, sometimes I turn it on. You're just gonna have to check it and see when I'm on.
Right. Yeah.
we're gonna get really busy coming up here in the next month or so. So it'll be on more than not. You know, April for sure. We'll all be doing stuff related to GWAR and get ready for tour and everything. So
let's pivot a little bit to the side projects, and we'll start with this one because he brought it up. But Jim wants to talk about the DBX records and the tours. I don't know if there's a question there, but I guess how was that compared to the GWAR experience, and is it different playing without all that shit on your head? Like, is it easier? Is it hard to play with that stuff on?
It's a lot different. I could challenge any band in the world to put on our costumes and try to play your own songs that you wrote and see how difficult it would be. That stuff is not easy to wear. It's not easy to play in. And I don't think Balsack has seen his guitar neck for 35 years. So I defy you to play music in anyone. So, you know, I guess maybe we could be a little bit better band than we are if we didn't have to wear that stuff. DBX was definitely a cool little experiment. And it was nice, the freedom to just be able to play without crap all over you. And we were in between, we were working on record deals and new management at the time. We had finished all the record deals, and then the lag time, you know, to get a new deal going and do another GWAR record and have people come back, you know, because a lot of people had moved out of town. Bob and Matt had left. And
they were in New York, right?
Yeah, and a lot of people had even left the band. So it was really me, Dave, and Dirks that kind of held it down. And Dave was like, well, I think GWAR still has stuff to say. And I know we can get players and we can get Bob and Matt and maybe whoever, Chuck or somebody back. But in the meantime, while we're doing, it's taken a year or two to do these deals. He's like, I want to do these songs. And obviously, you know, Metal Blade being our label, they would obviously give Dave a deal with whatever he wanted to do, you know. So we did 2 records with DBX and 3 US tours that were sparsely attended. And it was terrible fun. It was terrible and it was fun as well.
Right. Yeah, I just missed those shows. I know you played I think a place called Connections in New Jersey, and I was trying to go to that show, and I think I was just a little too young for it at the time.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of that?
You know, we like to joke, but it's almost true. If what I remember, the first 4 hours or 5 hours of the day, because after that we were drunk all the time. So
right.
It's 25 years ago. So
wow,
it's really hard to remember. Like DBX was definitely, we're just out there doing it and just having fun and getting away from everything, and definitely didn't, you know, think about anything too much. Like, all right, we're just gonna do Dave's songs. He wants to go on tour, fine. We can make some money. Don't have anything better going on, you know, while we're working on this GWAR deal stuff. So
yeah. And then here, I want to show a picture that I took. I took some of these pictures
nice.
From the X-Cop. So when that came along, did you have much involvement with that? I know you sang Barbells, which I think is the best X-Cop song. Do you enjoy singing, or you know, how much involvement did you have in that when it came up?
Well, we had done Skullhead Face, and there's a scene in Skullhead Face where Dave and Pete are dressed as cops, and there's like this voodoo priestess, and it looks like somebody had gotten killed with a lawn jockey. Like this whole little like GWAR commercial in the Skullhead. Yeah. So that's where it came from. They're filming that day. They're wearing the police uniforms, and they're talking to each other like, man, we got to sound a band where we're just all cops and we're all just brutally wrong and evil. And so that's how X-Cop started in about 94, and then they put out the record in 95. And so, you know, as Dave, as usual, he wants everyone involved, you know, like too many cooks in the kitchen was Dave's, you know, thing all the time. So he wanted everybody to do something. And Peter written the Barbell song. He written it front to back, lyrics and everything. And he was like, everyone needs to sing a song. So that was just my song. Bob got a song, and Casey's lead singer, and Dave sang a song, and I think Pete even sang a song. So that's how it went. It was just a collective mindset again, creating another dumb band that didn't do anything.
Was it like a conscious choice on your end to not play drums on this record? No,
record? They had Mike Dunn in Richmond, which is a guy out of Texas that Pete and Casey grew up with.
Yeah, he was in Blowhole. That band was awesome.
Yeah. Mike Dunn was a great dude. So he was brought in just with Pete, because they had been playing the songs in Texas, because Pete was writing most of them in Texas, and then he'd bring them up to Richmond and collaborate with Dirks, and Dave would write one or whatever. And so that was just the drummer Pete was using in Texas, and Dave was like, bring him. But oddly enough, at the time, you know, we all have kids at that point. At least Dirks and I did. And so those things for Dave Rocky were really, he would get anxious. You know, we have kids, and then he'd be like, oh, they're going to leave the band, and they're not going to, you know, they're going to become dads and stuff. So every once in a while, Dave would do like some weird political move like that. Like, let me bring in Mike Dunn to just make sure that Brad's on his toes to keep his job in GWAR.
That guy's a good drummer.
Yeah, he's a good drummer. But
it sounds like a machine on that record.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's really just him playing hard, I guess.
Yeah, it is. It is. Mike's great.
And then
that's the evil record that was really, it's probably written, concept written and recorded all doing meth. That's why it's so fast. And
okay, that makes sense.
It's just brutal. Those guys were all doing drugs.
Yeah, that first song when it comes in with that double bass, it's like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's a good band. Even now, the band now is even as exciting as the band then was. I think
you didn't come on the last tour. I was a little disappointed. You didn't want to get back in the van.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that. It's just, you know, we have different lifestyles, so I couldn't really afford to go back out on tour and you know, make no money for a month and be in the middle of winter and everyone gets sick and dying, and you know,
it was brutal.
Plus, there's so many people in the band. If everyone goes, then there's no meat on the bone. There's nothing left for everyone to bring home for the hard work. So if you just take the core of the band out, it's a little bit easier monetarily, because that band's not pulling any crowds.
No, it was kind of sad.
Yeah, like
I saw the last show they did, because they canceled the last one because everyone was sick. I saw the show right before that in Queens, New York.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh man, everyone's in a bad mood because they're fucking dying.
Yeah, I don't know how Pete survived that show. I was watching it from afar, but
I'm not sorry. Were you watching the live stream?
Yeah, I'm not sorry I missed it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be either. Yeah, Pete was having some difficulties on stage too, and it was actually it was sad, but it was funny at the same time, because Dirks is trying to do his speech as the character, and Pete's just like, what the fuck am I doing? It's like, oh no.
Yeah, I think that tour might have taught those guys a little bit of a lesson. So we'll see.
It's a humbling experience, I suppose.
Yeah, you know, it's worthwhile though. Anybody out there that still wants to be in a band, man, there's something about it that's pretty special. You're not going to get a lot of help. You're going to have to do everything yourself to get it started. But you know, Henry Rollins getting the van, that stuff's no joke. You know, that can build some character quick, and you can get some cool life experiences and build some character, and you can get in a lot of trouble and meet a lot of interesting people. Like it's a pretty cool education, you know, just touring America and trying to meet people and like share some music with them. So I highly recommend it, but be prepared, because it's not going to be easy. It's going to be uphill the whole way.
Less space to hide from the crowd too. Less space to hide from the crowd, you know, like they're just kind of, everyone's just kind of there in the room.
Yeah.
All right, I want to talk about some other side projects. I don't even know if I can pronounce the name of this band, but it's called Kazonam, right?
Kazonam, yeah.
Yeah, what was the story with this band?
Kazonam's the Hungarian word for thank you, is what I believe, or what I've been told. It's with some players from Richmond, guys. You know, Richmond's known for its crazy math metal kind of music, and and everyone here has a kind of different way to think about stuff, you know, even all the way into current bands from here like Lamb of God. You know, they keep it metal, but they got some of that Richmond sound and math to them a little bit, and that was just two players. They wanted to just get you know, some songs done. Really good friends of mine even to this day, Tannen Penland and Bobby Donnie. And when Bobby Donnie left, Dirks came in and played bass, and we did some other.
He plays bass on this. Gotcha.
We did a second. Well, it depends on what recording is on there. Like there was the first session with the three of us, and then there was the second session with Dirks and a singer, Dwayne Curd.
Yeah, he's credited on here.
Yeah.
I think there's like 3 songs on here. Let's see. It's so small I can't read it.
Yeah,
I don't know. This is like part of the Slave Pit singles, if you remember
Yeah.
those. Yeah. Wait, so there's more recordings of this band?
There should be 7 songs total.
Oh, wow.
Somewhere.
Where are those songs?
I wanted to put them out on Pit Records, and we were talking about it, and then GWAR gets so busy, and
Yeah.
people kind of dropped the ball, and we're looking for artwork. But I had been talking about it for a couple of years now, and Dirks was like, "All right, I'll kick in some money," and Tannen the same, but it
was
just
some
kind
good stuff.
Yeah, there's some fun things on there. You know, it's just a moment in time where we all got together and just to do some musical things that, you know, wasn't GWAR.
Did this band ever play any shows, or was it just a studio project?
We did a couple local Richmond shows. They were pretty crazy, maybe 1 or 2 at the most. And but Tannen went on later to record with lots of crazy musicians over in Europe. He had a band called Loincloth for a minute, and now he's finishing up another project with a bunch of well-known players. They're mostly all European guys. They kind of, you know, he's all about dark Scandinavian and just, you know, real heavy stuff. He's still one of my favorite dudes and one of the best players. Not technically like he's the best, but just the way his mind works with music is just hard to even like. I just like to pick at it just to see what I can get off of it, because it's just insane the way the guy thinks about tunes and riff.
Definitely
about the riff.
It was definitely a unique experience for sure. Okay, here's another one for you, and this is one. Okay, I really like this record, Armstrong.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's Zach Blair.
Yeah.
It's when he was in GWAR with playing Flatus in the early 2000s. And we just come off of Violence Has Arrived, which was one of the records with Zach playing that I thought brought GWAR back into the fold of like, we're going to be meaner and heavier and less silly. So Zach was a crucial component to that, you know, getting GWAR back to something that was like heavy metal.
He told me some of those songs were written in high school, those Violence Has Arrived songs.
Yeah, some of those riffs. Yeah, he's had them for a long time. And then, you know, he's from the pop punk. Hagfish.
Yeah.
So he had all these other songs in his head and in between GWAR stuff. And you kind of knew that he was, you know, going to just use GWAR as a stepping stone and go somewhere else, which he did.
Yeah.
And that was just the conduit between it, you know. Armstrong, he's like, hey, I need a drummer. Let's go out to the blasting room with Bill Stevenson from Black Flag and the Descendants.
That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going with this. I want to know, like, what, as drummers, you know, did you guys like have some cool conversations, or did you know Bill before this? Like, did you guys used to play with All, right?
Yeah, I knew of Bill. I had met Bill. I had obviously grown up loving the Descendants and All and watching their shows every time they came to town since 87 or 86. I'd seen the Descendants but it wasn't until Armstrong where I got to meet Bill, and then I actually got to go record at the blasting room.
Yeah, the blasting room. That place just sounds awesome every time.
Yeah, so that was cool, and that was an experience that Zach had with Hagfish. You know, Bill had done their records, and so he brought me in for that, and that was great. And Bill and I have been friends ever since, and he's definitely a mentor. He's a go-to drummer if you're going to talk about any kind of style or any kind of DIY in a punk band. Bill Stevenson is probably in the first conversation when the drummers come up, because you can't be in Black Flag and the Descendants and not talk about Bill. You know, that's the start. That's the start of the stuff that we thought was so crazy, and they were just doing it, and they were inspirational. Still to this day, all the stuff Bill does, man, he's still at it. You know. Yeah.
Was there any insights that you got from him, like producing this, or like
You know, oddly enough, Bill's more like the guru. He like really focuses in on the melodies and the backup harmonies and the vocals and the content. And then he's got other guys in the studio. So most of the drum tracks were recorded with Stefan Egerton, which is the guitar player.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Because he's an amazing drummer on his own right.
I didn't know that. I believe it. I've just watched that guy play. I saw him play with Flag once, too, those guys. It was awesome.
Yeah, so he was behind the board, and then he has this other guy, Jason Livermore, who was he's the strings guy. Anything with strings, tuning and everything. He's the other engineer for that. So it was me and Stefan, and you know, Bill's there the whole time or whatever. But you know, maybe I remember in the recording session, he'd be like, "All right here, you gotta do this, or right here, you gotta tighten it up, or right here, just go fucking nuts right here." You know, he would just say real broad stuff. He wouldn't really tell you what to do, but he could tell what the song needed. You know,
Nice.
So he would make that suggestion once in a while.
Well, it came out well. More people need to listen to this record. I don't know if it's available anywhere, probably on YouTube, but Armstrong, another one that should be re-released somewhere.
Yeah, it's O&O Records. That was Bill Stevenson's record label.
Oh, was it? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I bought it at a GWAR show when Zach was in the band. So
yeah.
And here's another one.
It was a fun record to make. That was a good time because it was easy. And being at the blasting room, they just have all kinds of good vibes. And I was like, wow, this is way less intense than making a GWAR record. Like GWAR record is intense, you know. You're like getting to it, you know. Like this is GWAR. It's got to be done, you know. Where Armstrong was just like, all right, I got these tracks. And then during the whole process, Zach had lost his voice. And so he couldn't even sing. He had to go back way later and sing the vocals on it. And Bill was all worried because he only had a small gap of a week to like record this record before like something like, you know, Chemical Romance came in to record a hit record, you know. So he had this limited time, but he managed to squeeze it out. But Zach had no voice when we tracked it.
Yeah. You ever think about bringing GWAR to record at the blasting room?
Man, if it weren't for the expense, you know. But now the recording is different. You know, you can get something great out of your living room.
Yeah.
So not really for drums. Drums, you still need a room, but everything else you can just record in your bedroom. And I would love to record in a blasting room. That room sounds really good. And
yeah, what's the drum room there like? Like, what makes it so special?
I don't know. They just have it situated. You know, it's the drums are just across the room, facing the engineer window in the next room. It's just the room is just baffled right, and just it was built properly. You know, they recorded a bunch of hit albums there. You know, Bill built that place from scratch with the rest of the guys, Jason Livermore and those guys. And yeah, it's just a good room. You know, you'll know it when you step into it. You're like, oh, that's a good room. We're going to get great sounds out of this room. And it does start with drums, because if you can't get that sonically going, then it'll change the sonic dynamic of the string instruments. Like, you know, you can't make them sound this way if you got weak ass drums over here. It just won't mesh. So yeah, Bill's got something good going out there, and I was happy that I got a chance to record there for sure.
That's great. Everything Sucks is one of the best sounding punk records ever. It's a great record.
you can say it sounds great, man, but it's really the performance and the content.
Well,
really
that's
the song and the way they perform it.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, the Descendants, I mean, that's the way I like my punk rock. Fucking tight, you know?
Yeah.
And they are the pioneers or whatever of tight punk rock, I would say.
Yeah.
All right, I got one more side project for you. Then we'll get back into the GWAR stuff.
I have that, man. I didn't even know I had this, man.
Yeah, can you believe it? And maybe there's more. I don't know. Maybe this is it.
I think you've covered them.
This is a weird one. No Deal.
Oh yeah.
This CD doesn't even work anymore. I don't know.
It's probably a computer CD, isn't it?
It's
not
a
even
CDR.
a CD.
It's a CDR. Yeah, it doesn't work anymore. But I definitely bought this at a GWAR show, and anytime I see something I don't recognize at a GWAR merch booth, I pick it up right up immediately.
Thanks for that support. That's cool.
Yeah, what's the story with No Deal?
No Deal is it's just another. I just needed to help a friend. He was our sound engineer. He was
Jeremy
Smith. Yeah, and he did CKY and a bunch of other stuff.
Okay.
And he was like, I got these songs. You want to help me put these songs together? And playing guitar, so I did. I don't even know how many songs are on there. 4 or 5.
There's
6?
4 songs on here. I think there's a couple more, maybe on YouTube or something.
Yeah. All right.
Did you ever do any shows with this band? Or?
Man, I don't even remember those songs.
I don't remember them either.
No, I don't remember the songs. I don't know if they were all that great. One of the guys, there was a band called Sunshine in Richmond, which had a nice little run when they were popular. And the other guitar player in that band was a guy named Mike, and he was roommates with one of the guys in Sunshine. And obviously, unfortunately, he passed away while we were doing that little demo. It was pretty traumatic for him, but we finished the demo, and there's always some sort of tragic story when you're dealing with GWAR.
Well,
but I would like
you're on a
stuff.
pretty good run right now, so let's hope not.
Yeah. I actually just talked to Jeremy, so maybe I'll get him to bring that stuff over because he's a sound engineer. He's got the original recording somewhere, you know.
Yeah, bring them back out because tell them that these CDs of ours don't work anymore, you know.
Yeah, we recorded War Party in his studio.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That was Corey's first record. We recorded it in Jeremy's studio.
Yeah. I saw that tour, yeah. Let's do some questions from the audience. It wasn't Violence Has Arrived also recorded at Chamberlain?
It was. I think it was the last thing we recorded at Chamberlain.
That was a good sounding record too, I think.
Yeah. It did. It had some crack to it.
It was raw. It was pretty kind of raw, and that was cool.
Yeah. That's what I think, Zach and Casey were just like, enough all this silly Dave Rocky shit. Silly songs like Fucking an Animal, and they were like, man, we just got to make it mean and lean and tough, and they're Texas boys, and they love metal, so they were just, especially Casey from Rigor Mortis.
Oh yeah, like, Rigor Mortis is nuts. And Mike Scott,
we're playing everything fast and hard, and they just started writing riffs, and that's what you got.
Yeah, speaking of that side, like I know this is sidetrack already, but were you involved when Al Jorgensen was mixing stuff for Scumdogs? And there was that whole Casey Ministry connection and all that stuff.
No, I never really hung with Al. I think they just flew up because he wanted to do something with GWAR. And the Bishop and maybe Dirks flew up to Chicago, and Al mixed the two songs.
Yeah, what happened to the other one? It's on one of them's unreleased, I think.
I can't remember what we chose. We definitely chose his Horror of Yig mix over the one that our producer Ron Gowdy had done. And I thought maybe we used both, Black and Huge as well, but
I think
they were the ones that got to meet Al and go hang in the studio and mix the songs by colors, and who knows what drugs Al was on, but it fucking came out sounding great. And it really helped propel that record, having his name associated with it. It's one of our best records, and his mixes were undeniably sounding so good because he was doing all the Ministry stuff at the time, which no one ever heard anything like that, at least. So we were happy to do the collaboration, and we just couldn't afford to send everybody. There's no need to have that many cooks in the kitchen, so they went up to make sure Al did it, and then came home with stories.
Yeah, like I love the Scumdogs remix and everything, but Horror of Yig, you can never touch that original. It's just so unique and weird. Do you think in a different timeline, if I had heard a rumor that Al wanted to do the whole record and you couldn't afford him or something like that, do you think GWAR could have become? Yeah. You think had he done that, do you think GWAR would have been more of an industrial tinged band going forward?
I don't think Al would have influenced the way we wrote music at all. Like we always just draw from the stuff we like. So we draw a little Ministry sound here, a little Black Flag over here.
We were doing samples and stuff though. Yeah.
I don't think, we have samples with Dave Muscle running the samples in our group, but I don't think we would have gone that far to not have like organic band musicians, because at least I wouldn't have wanted it because I'm the drummer, like I wouldn't want to be replaced by the drum machine. Sound like that. Although we appreciated that stuff, I don't think that was where we were from. So what we were trying to do.
Yeah. Did you ever try to get Mike Scasha and GWAR?
No, but Casey suggested that we get Pete after Scasha went to Ministry. Pete Lee went to Rigor Mortis.
Right.
And then, Pete, and that's how we got Casey through Pete.
Right.
Yeah. Scasha would have been ripping, but once again, maybe not a fit,
Right. Yeah.
Scasha's known for his thing, and it's brutal, but it's not.
Hey, if Pete can still play those Ministry rips like him, like or Rigor Mortis stuff, oh my God, that's good. Let's see.
One of the greats. One of the first speed metal bands is Rigor Mortis in 81. Like no one was playing that. That was well into. That was out of Texas. That wasn't the Bay Area and Exodus and all of that stuff,
Did you know Rigor Mortis at the time, like before you met Casey and everything?
No, I knew of the band, and heard it, but I didn't know.
Like you were aware of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. How would you describe your playing style? Can you describe your playing style? Is there a playing style?
I mean, it sounds like me, I guess. You know,
Yeah.
that's why bands sound the way they do. It's the players' personalities that are able to come through the instrument. So if you get, capable of the instrument you're playing, and kind of no matter whatever you play, it's going to sound like you to some degree. So then you mix those four guys together, me, Dirk Bishop, and Dave Brocky, and Casey, and Pete Lee, it sounds like you. So as far as style, yeah, I've stolen and ripped off, and I've got favorites of all kinds of music, from jazz to punk to, prog rock to, metal to pop. And so I just steal little bits here and there, make them my own, and just put it into like what serves the song. My drumming style really serves the song. It's not flashy. It's not made to overplay and do a bunch of crazy chops that sound really cool. If it doesn't serve the song, just think of it as like a commercial, like a jingle. The whole thing has to swing in 30 seconds. That's the drummer's job. Like, make the McDonald's jingle go.
Yeah.
And so that's really the intent, and that's where you get old sayings like less is more when you record things, because if you overdo it, if everything's too convoluted, or there's too much, doesn't breathe, it's inaudible, So I just try to approach it like that, like, all right, what's the best thing that we could play here for the song? And then when there's little spots to throw something in, like, all right, this needs transition, so that's the drummer's job, get us into the next part, come up with something for that,
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I always say you're a fucking machine, dude. Like, every time I hear you or see you play that shit like note for note the same every time, it seems like. Is there like a lot of thought going into the writing of it so that you can do that, or does it ever develop further?
Well, thanks for that compliment. I think that's
No,
cool.
that's a compliment. Yeah, I mean,
No,
it's
I
just
like
like,
that. Well, I like
obviously
that.
you're playing. It's just like, wow, like you hit it's like you write the part for the song and then you keep it because it's perfect. It doesn't need to be changed.
Yeah, I think I kind of got that from growing up and watching Rush play a lot. I saw a lot of Rush concerts, and their style of music, progressive rock, is so complicated. And Neil Peart's one of the greatest drummers ever, and a huge influence, for any 80s kid that was starting to play drums. And when you would see them live, it was like seamless. It was like you were listening to the record. It did have inflections in different parts, but for the most part, the stuff he'd written, like I said, was so integral to the song that if he changed it, it would change the song. It's like listening to certain guitar solos. They become the melody of the song. You can't just noodle a guitar solo over this. This has to be this exact melody guitar solo, because that's such a fabric of the song. And his playing was like that with Rush. And so when you see him live, those solos, those fills, and all those things he did, those things wouldn't change. And I think I just kind of took that concept, like, all right, you should sound as good live as you sound on the record. You should be able to play the same thing. And then the great thing about music is you play it enough times, and then it's muscle memory. And, just play a song enough times, and there it is. You're going to play it sort of the same way every time. But, as you go through the years, hopefully you change a couple things. Like, I can make that a little bit better, but essentially I try to play it like we recorded it, for sure. Because it's really hard to be a jam band in GWAR. Like, it's timed, it's choreographed. Certain monster comes out, there's a death here. It's really like this heavy metal opera. So you don't have, we don't have all this jam space to like change and do songs. We try to, do a few things while we're rehearsing. Like, all right, we're gonna do this a little bit different because this suits the action of the show, and that's okay. But for the most part, it's not like the Grateful Dead. You're not up there all playing music together. You're kind of just performing this rock opera, in its entirety, the way it's supposed to be written and played. There's not a lot of room for, it's a lot of regurgitation as a film to like, oh, we're playing and jamming together. Like, that's not a GWAR show.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
And going on that, I know it's no secret that like, and this is true for pretty much any band these days, but like the whole show on the click track When did that come into play, and do you think that enhanced, the experience?
Well, a couple of things about it that are positives are it makes the band tighter because everybody knows where to be in the song. And I think it really came about because technology was kind of there, and Dave Muscle, our sample keyboard player, wasn't in the band anymore, and we didn't have like these sword hits and tings and blood gurgling sounds and crickets and all the weird samples that we have. So when you sequence some click tracks together, you can put in all those extra effects that really make a GWAR show what it is. You really need those extra sounds, and for the atmosphere and the vibe of the show, and actually for some of just the pure action of the show. Those sounds just need to be there. So the only way to do that was to put it on a click because we didn't have another keyboard player after he left.
Yeah, and since you're the drummer, are you like heavily involved in crafting that, or?
It's not. Well, sometimes we'll come up with like different tempos, but for the most part, we'll steal the tempo off the album, whatever song we're going to play. Dirks is sort of the mastermind of creating the sequence tracks now. He's got all the computer work because, they go pretty far to put really good sequence stuff, dialogue, all the stuff in between songs, little, cues for us when to start things. All that stuff in the track. So he really builds that stuff.
Nice. Cool. Here's a random one. Do you know why Drop Drawers wasn't released on Carnival? Well, there was like a rights issue there, right?
Was there? Yeah. What's the song that we steal at the end of it? The riff we steal at the end.
Yeah, I can't remember right now. It was like a country song or something.
I can't remember what it is.
I think, yeah, that was the reason,
right? Or some crazy song. I don't know what it is, but the end of that song has that riff in it, and that's why we couldn't use it because we couldn't get rights to use it.
Yeah, and that wasn't the only one on that record. You couldn't use the Star Trek. I mean, the Star Trek thing either.
Right.
Yeah.
We do a lot.
Let's see. Oh, what's your favorite drummer? From Titties the Clown, from Green Jelly.
Oh man, you can't even answer that. We spoke about one of them, tonight. Two of them, right? There's tons. There's just an infinite amount of drummers that I love and that I've drawn from and that I've stolen little bits from. And if I had to list them all, it'd be really tough. But the couple of guys I mentioned were definitely influential, and there's a lot of just punk drummers too. Like first time I ever heard the Dead Kennedys or the Circle Jerks. I'm like, how are they playing that fast? What is this? Why are they playing so fast? That blew my mind. So, those are all springboard points for you as a player. Like you hear something and you're like, oh, I want to do that. I want to figure out how to do that. Or like, how the fuck are they doing that? So yeah, you can just go down the list. It's too many to list.
Yeah, you missed playing Police Truck on the new X-Cops tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool. Well, we touched on this a little bit. Hardest GWAR songs to play, or what's the funnest GWAR songs to play?
I don't know, man. There's a list of them. These are all tough questions because we change them all the time.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna get stumped because I'm trying to go through a Rolodex.
Well, like when you guys are putting together the set list, do you input like your favorites in there?
I always want to say, it depends on the tour too. Like, if it's a festival show, you want to play kind of like the stuff we're known for. You don't want to play a B-side of something obscure that a festival crowd's not even going to know what the fuck. But some of those are really fun to play. And more recently, because Tommy's in the band, he's such a big fan, he'll throw out some ideas like, oh, these are some of my favorite deep GWAR cuts. And I'll be like, let's play those.
Nice.
So probably
how we got Pepperoni.
Yeah. Probably the ones that we don't play a lot would be, I would say, more fun than me trying to play like Sick of You again for the
do you ever get sick of that song?
Like, I don't think I get sick of them, because you're always in the moment playing live, and that's fine. But, I could be like thinking about Laundry when that song is going on, like you really, you can lose yourself because the song so well. So you try not to. You try to stay in the moment and give the best performance. But, the newer stuff, I'm digging, obviously, because it's newer and fresher. Hard songs, you know, some of them I listen to. You go back and listen to some stuff on Bloody Pit of Horror. I would say I would have a hard-pressed time playing some of that stuff that we wrote with Corey.
Yeah.
I played it in the studio and probably with multiple takes to get it. And some of it we did play live, but I listen to it now and I'd be like, man, I'd have to go to the wood shop for a long time to fucking regurgitate a song like Sick and Twisted or, you know, just almost anything off of that record. I thought that record was so brutal. And I was really bummed that we didn't get to do another one with Corey because that kid left a lot of good songs on the table. I thought the next GWAR record with him was going to have some pretty interesting stuff on it. You know?
Yeah.
Actually, that's the last thing he said to me. It's like, what kind of GWAR record do you want to make next?
What did you say?
And I was just like, I don't know. Let me think about it. I was like, and then I probably said something like, well, obviously I'm going to make a GWAR record with you, you know, something like that. But I had no clue. I was like, I don't know. What is he going to come up with? I'll be there. I'll be in the studio when it happens, you know?
Sure. Nice. Yeah, good questions, guys. What's it? Yeah, maybe a sensitive question, but can you explain the story of how Pete ended up leaving GWAR? Seems to be conflicting stories.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. You know, Pete can speak more to that than I can.
Yeah, he was on the show.
I know the trauma of him getting shot was really tough for him.
Yeah, for sure.
And I just remember him flying back to Texas, and we didn't have a tour or any rehearsal for a while, and I don't know what the correspondence was between him and Brocky, because I think in those days Brocky was probably the closest, like, hey, we're doing this, Pete. Hey, what's gonna happen? And I just remember him going, and then he's saying he wasn't gonna come back. Or it could have been, you know, Brocky was like, don't come back. Or it could have been, you know, whatever. All I know was like we had shit to do and Pete didn't show up for it. You know, same thing with Dewey and Flatus. We were writing songs for America Must Be Destroyed. And Dewey just never showed up to write songs with us in rehearsal, and he was doing a construction gig, and that's kind of, you know, they just kind of stepped out. You know, I didn't think Pete wanted to come back. Maybe I don't know what the trauma level was the PTSD or whatever was like for him in those days, but I can imagine it was pretty intense. And you know, he chose accordingly, you know, to what was best for him.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Jim is throwing out Stripper Christmas to bring back. I'll throw out SFW. What do you think?
SFW was fun. They kind of gypped us on SFW. They were like, write a song for this new irreverent movie about whatever rebelling youth or whatever. The title's called So Fucking What. We want you to write the title track. So we do the title track. We go in the studio to record a 2-track live demo. That means only 2 channels. Everyone's mic'd up in the room live. We record it, and then Brocky sings it, and we send it in. And they're like, perfect, great job, guys. And we're like, now you can give us money so we can record the song for a movie quality song, and it can be mixed properly instead of on 2, you know, tracks. And they were like, no, this is good enough. Because they didn't want to pay us, so they didn't have the movie money to pay us or whatever. So they end up using that, and it gets nominated for a Grammy.
I know, go figure.
Performance.
What a great song! When's the last time you guys played that one? Not in a while, huh?
Yeah, not in a while. I play that one. That'd be a fun one to play.
Yeah, I love
and
that.
What was the other song?
Stripper Christmas Weekend. Christmas. Yeah, whatever that one was.
I don't know. That was a riff that really to me sounded like.
I don't think you ever played that one live.
Oh man, I don't think we ever should.
Right.
I think fair. That one was a riff that Corey had, and I just thought, man, that riff is so catchy. That could be like some sort of Creed hit or something, you know, like some sort of mainstream pop hit, rock hit. And then of course you give it to Dave, and then he just shat some lyrics all over it that are just so fucking obscene that we couldn't possibly use it anywhere. So that's what happened with that song.
Yeah. All right, let's skip a little bit back into the present. So I was reading the book, and one of the things they said about you coming into the band was you were kind of like the sober guy. So how did you become the face of the GWAR alcohol brands as seen here?
Divorce.
Yeah, okay.
No, okay. No, I was sober in GWAR for like the first 15 years or something like that.
Wow.
I didn't do
What
any
changed?
drugs. I didn't do
Did
any
you
drugs or alcohol. I
cut
was
your hair
totally-
and start drinking?
Yeah, no, I just got a little older, and life happens. I had a couple kids and divorced, and I'm moving on, and then just pick up a hobby of drinking bourbon. I kind of took to it and like it. I just never did any hard drugs or anything in those days. Still haven't smoked pot to this day since high school in the 80s.
Wow.
Like I just don't do that stuff. So I'm kind of like old school grandpa. I just smoke cigars and drink bourbon. There's no all the pot and the psychedelics and all that shit happened in high school before I even got in GWAR. So when I got into GWAR, I was like really serious about trying to hone my craft so that I could actually be in a professional band. So if I was high or drunk or fucked up, I wasn't playing drums very well. Or I wasn't playing drums at all. So I just didn't party, and I just focused on playing. And that probably helped me get the GWAR gig. And I was just that way for a long time until about, the late 90s. And then maybe I started to drink a little bit.
And now, tell me about the spot, like the what was it, Ragnarok Rye and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Did you like spearhead all that, or how did you become the face of that whole thing?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Dirks and I are the big drinkers in the band, and Bob Gorman is the dabbler. He likes a little bit of bourbon too, and Dirks is the chef and bartender, so he's really the connoisseur. And now I've done enough bourbon and rye things where I kind of know what I'm talking about and enjoy different drinks. And management, everybody, we just put it together like, hey, we want to go after this, and then they find companies that are like-minded and we can collaborate with. And those collaborations have turned out really good. A lot of them were kicked off because we were producing and promoting the barbecues that we had in the early 2010s. So we would do a bunch of products, collaborate with our festival, and the cigars worked, and the bourbon and that kind of the beers, all that kind of stuff that we did. It just kind of rolled into that, take GWAR as a band and make it into a brand that still makes sense for the band. Don't do anything or everything like Kiss does, and but do stuff that makes sense that's still GWAR centric.
Nice. Let's see.
Yeah, we're looking to do a bourbon right now.
And there's new coffee. That's a new thing. It's back. Happened. There's a new brand of coffee coming up.
Yep. I think that's on sale now, as a matter of fact.
Yes, I think it just the other day I got an email about it. So I gotta go get some coffee. Because that's one of my things, caffeine. I love my caffeine.
I know. I had to drop caffeine for a little while too, but on the road, caffeine's an important drug.
For sure. I bet. Let's see. Yeah, you had mentioned My Chemical Romance before. Didn't you have something to do with that music video with like their guitar player or?
Oh yeah, we did a cameo.
How did that come up?
We did a cameo. Yeah, he was just a big fan of GWAR, and he had this side project, and it just worked out where we were all geared up and rehearsing for a tour, and then he could bring his band, and we had the spot to film it, and it was the same director, Dave Brodsky, and Allie, who have done a bunch of our videos. They were doing his video, and I guess they were cultivating the script and the concept for their video. And Brodsky, being the director, he's like, oh, I know GWAR, I know Clutch or whoever. And the guy was like, what, GWAR? He's like, can we get him to be in our video? And so a deal was worked out on probably some money exchanged, and we were happy to do it because it came out pretty fun.
That I always love when GWAR kind of like transcends into like the real worlds, and that's kind of what brings out the absurdity, because like when you see them pop up somewhere they're not really supposed to be, or like on Fox News or something, you're like, oh wow.
Yeah,
it kind
of we're juxtaposed in a modern society, right?
Exactly. Yeah, more of that.
That's why I always love the idea of the GWAR showing up on 7-Eleven on horseback to get cigarettes and Slurpees. I always thought that was just a great use of, but if you put us on horses, they'd probably throw us off.
Yeah, that's funny. You need dinosaurs, you need to ride your dinosaurs.
Yeah.
What do you think of the new toys coming out? I'm pretty excited about those. You think that they finally, this is like what people have been wanting for 40 years, right?
It looks so good. Finally, this company Trick or Treat is coming, I mean, we've had deals and stuff in the past, or deals that
I got a couple of you here.
Yeah, we've
That
had
one's
stuff
from the-
like that, but man, these toys are the real deal, man. People are gonna freak out, and if you buy the whole set, you can cobble together an odorous.
Yeah.
With like carrying case and stuff. I can't wait to get mine. I've only seen them once in the flesh. They brought some prototypes out.
Nice.
They've been taking them around to different toy conventions, and Trick or Treat should be releasing them this year, probably close to Halloween. I'm guessing. I don't really have the schedule in front of me, but
yeah, Matt was commenting on the last show. I think maybe April is the planned pre-order about right now.
yeah, they're going to pre-order. I know that, but I'm not sure when the delivery date is. But
Gotcha.
yeah, I can't wait to get them either. They're really awesome looking. They did a great job. Finally, right?
I know.
We always had talks with Spawn back in the day.
Yeah, that would have been great.
All the guys in there creative were big GWAR fans. They bring up GWAR every single time when they go to create a new line for McFarlane Toys, and it was just that GWAR just didn't have enough mainstream like juice. Like half the kids buying the toys wouldn't know it because it wasn't a movie or it wasn't a comic. Or it wasn't, it wasn't Janis Joplin or whoever, the hugest female singer of all time. Yeah. So like we just didn't have enough for them to ever put the green light on it. But these toys definitely look as good as anything McFarlane Toys ever put out. The detail, the articulation, it's just the best. I can't wait to get them.
Nice. Yeah, me too. I always say my biggest complaint is that I don't have any room for them. I have too many GWAR things already. Where am I going to put them? But that's okay. That's a good problem to have.
New shelf.
Yeah, I know. I need to build a new shelf. Yeah, we'll do a couple more questions, and then I got a few final thoughts. Then we'll wrap this thing up.
Sounds good.
Let's see. This is an interesting one. When GWAR rehearses for tour, do you all do dress rehearsals to help fine tune the storyline in the show?
I think there's some of that, yeah. Towards the end, they'll like make sure a prop kind of is working or wear it, or sometimes I used to like, all right, let me put on the Jizmak feet and see if they're any different weight so I can play the song. Or
oh yeah, you play with those things on, don't you?
Yeah.
Why? No one can see that shit. That's dedication.
Well, because you walk out there, what are you going to walk out there? You're not going to change once you get out there. I got to throw a couple pieces off. It's all part of the ritual, man. You got to. If you're getting dressed in GWAR, as soon as you put the bucket on, you're that character, and then you're all in the room together as GWAR. I can't just walk out there with Vans on. I gotta have the shoes.
So like, wow, I didn't even think about that. Is it a different experience playing with those feet on? And like, how different is that? Or do they have to especially make them for your being able to play drums as opposed to other characters?
They're obviously smaller. They're basically just latex over top of a set of slip-on bands, so they're lighter and they're not big feet like the other characters have and stuff. But they're still like every once in a while, like maybe I better put these on to see.
Right? Yeah, for sure. What did you think of the documentary?
It was cool. I was really glad that we got one made. The arc of GWAR, to tell every single story would take 18 hours. You'd need to do a mini series if you really.
And that's why I do this show.
If you really wanted to get into it, you would have to do a bunch more. But I thought it was a really good telling of the band's history, and it hit a lot of the high points. It doesn't get all the detail. It was cool that Shudder put it out, and we got to do a couple of things with it. I think there's probably even more stuff down the road, with the documentary, nice. And then leading us into, I know we're working on a real, movie script and everything right now, and trying to get that going in the upcoming years. So nice. That's all just part of the baby steps to get a GWAR movie made and everything else. And also it was kind of time to tell the story. We hadn't really told stories or been on shows like this where you see us, usually you only got GWAR from GWAR, get the behind the scenes stuff. And we just thought it was time to sort of maybe tell that story. And Scott Barber and his crew and everybody did a great job,
Yeah. He was my first guest on this show.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. I was like,
a great dude.
My biggest problem with the documentary was that I didn't get to make it. So therefore I'm creating a show. instead. So now I get all the, you know, I get all the nitty gritty niche stories on this one.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks for doing it.
Yeah, well, thank
Appreciate
you.
you.
And everyone else, you know, all the other past and present scumdogs. I almost got all of you, the present guys. Almost.
We'll get there.
Yeah. Well, Dirks doesn't want to do it. I'm not going to pressure him, you know, but you guys can peer pressure him if you want. Just saying. You know, he'll if he wants to do it, he'll do it. He knows I exist. It's all good.
You're right on.
I always thought if you ever were going to make another documentary, you could make one from the character's perspective. And that would be really funny too. It'd be kind of like that Ragnarok movie where you're all telling like the same story, but we remember it differently.
Sure.
So I'll make that one. If you ever guys want to do that, I'll do that if you want.
It's a good idea. Idea, but obviously no shortage of ideas over here.
Yeah, right.
So many hit the floor and never get done because there's just too many.
That's something I like asking people. Is there any like specific ideas or even non-GWAR slave pit ideas that never got off the ground that like that were interesting or funny?
I mean, we try to incorporate the side stuff into, you know, as skits or you know, in the show or in the movies or in, you know, we had the Slave Pit TV during the pandemic and stuff. We try to
that was great.
Do those other creative things, you know, that don't really are not really in the GWAR universe, but they're kind of like up against the GWAR universe, you know, and that's fun. That's fun stuff to do. The thing is, GWAR is a big time-consuming animal, so you can't do all the ideas that you have for it. And you pick the best ones, and you pick the ones that you think are going to be also, in some degree, the most profitable, so that you can perpetuate doing more of the other ideas that you didn't get to do last time. So you always want to make the right choice, because if you make the wrong one, then there's no money to make any of them. So we always try to, you know, be real concentrated in the effort. We used to just make whatever the fuck we wanted and did not give a shit how much it cost, or, you know, like as true artists. But as you grow in the business and you get older and smarter, you don't do things that way anymore. You do the stuff that makes the most sense, that has the highest impact, and hopefully that the fans will enjoy the most, so that you get a chance to make more.
Right. Yeah, of course. Now I have to ask this just because I'm making a documentary. And I think this was more before your time in the band, but do you remember anything about Haunted Garage?
Yeah, I saw that, your ad there for Haunted Garage. I know we did play some shows with them early.
Did you? Because there's conflicting reports on that, and
I was pretty sure GWAR did. I wasn't sure if I was in the band or not. I seem to vaguely recall that I was around, or they might have shown up at a GWAR show back in LA when I played. You know, there was obviously some similarities, and everyone talked or compared us in those days, and, you know, Green Jelly, all that kind of stuff too. But I think I might have been a little bit before my time, but maybe we hung out once. I don't know. You know, like I said, I was the sober one, so I wasn't always at the party back at the person's apartment to, you know, be in the scene of doing the drugs or whatever the fuck was going on. Sometimes I was just elsewhere off doing my own thing or sleeping while they were up raging. So a lot of those drug-induced memories and moments that happened, I wasn't a part of, because I don't know the MO. You know, I didn't know we were going to that side of town so we could score weed. You know, wasn't on my radar. You know, I was just trying to play drums and GWAR.
Well, here's an interesting story from the Haunted Garage side. Is they went to see you guys at the Palladium, I think 1990. You were playing with Green Jello that show, and Henry Rollins as well.
Yeah.
And someone jumped from the speakers and like got taken out on a stretcher. I think this was during the Rollins set, but it was during that show. And Haunted Garage wrote a song about it.
Yeah, that was a big show. There was a lot of stars there. That was.
Yeah,
like
who else was there?
That was like at the apex of the popularity. It was probably one of the bigger LA shows we'd ever done, even to this day, for some reason. Like,
wow.
I think Ozzy was there, and he never went out to see shows. And
did you get to meet him and stuff?
No, we just heard that he was, you know, him and Sharon were there in some balcony VIP area. James Hetfield was there backstage with El Duce from the Mentors, drinking all the beer.
Yeah.
I remember we got off stage, and Hetfield and El Duce drank all the beer that we had while we were on the stage playing. But yeah, like Flea from the Chili Peppers, we had done an MTV short or something with him involved. So he was in there, and they were filming some stuff in the front row, you know, for MTV, and Alex Winter. Like, yeah, that was a huge show. Ice-T was there. Like, it was crazy, star-studded kind of, you know, early in our career. Like, everyone had to check out GWAR because we'd been a few times to California, but when we hit that time, where everyone was just like, holy shit, this is gonna be crazy as shit. This is the show to go to, and everybody did show up.
Yeah, that was like the Tour de Scum tour, I think.
Yeah, it was.
All right, let's land this plane. Let's promote GWAR a little bit. First of all, oh yeah, so how do you feel about 40 years of GWAR, man? Like, did you ever think when you joined the band that you were gonna still be here, 35 years later?
Absolutely not. But I will say, throughout the course of the being in GWAR, there was a point where I realized, like, oh, this could go on forever.
Do you still think that?
I think it absolutely could. I think it absolutely could. Not with us, you know, as we would get maybe too old to even do it, but you could transform it into, like, here's our proteges, or here's our understudies. These are the guys we are vetting for GWAR, coming from the guys in GWAR, and we would give the endorsement, that's the new GWAR. You know, I could totally see that happen if that's what we want to do, or if we're the egomaniacs that I believe we are and always have been, it will die with us because we don't want anyone else to take over.
Well, that's what Dave always said, right? He wanted it just to go on forever.
Yeah, he had been caught quoting that.
Yeah,
for sure. And we always thought, you know, that was the case. If GWAR had life and we all felt that it had something relevant or something to do, we had more music to make, that we would just keep doing it. So that's what we've done. You know, if we all got to a point and we're sitting in the room and we're like, I don't really care, or I don't really have an idea or whatever, then we would stop doing it. But I think, you know, we still haven't done stuff that GWAR set out to do from the beginning. We still haven't made a movie. Like, we're working on that right now, you know, to actually do a real theatrical release.
Yeah.
That's not, you know, so that's something that's still, you know, in our minds, and actually the ball's rolling right now. Hopefully that'll get done in the upcoming years.
That's great. Yeah, we need more GWAR movies for sure. Let's start that as the next trend. Like, less albums, more. You know, of course, there's, you know, logistics and money involved, but as a fan, it's like, yes, more GWAR movies. I think that's where you guys really shine. Was there any, going on that whole thing, was there any truth to, like, the rumor that Dave was gonna replace himself and leave the band for a while or something like that?
I don't know. I know he did have a plan to, like, kind of get to a retired point, do some art, have like a cabin on the lake. He was looking at some real estate, whatever, you know. He had a plan to, like, he wanted to do commission artwork and things like that and spend some time doing that. I think Dave would ultimately always come back to GWAR, but he did want to like, get us off the gerbil wheel for a minute. After he turned 50, I guess he started to reflect and be like, hey, I should do this too. I got some writing I still want to do. I have a lot of commissions I have no time to do as an artist because GWAR's so busy. So I think, you know, and he had back trouble too, you know, so the costume was killing him more and more as he got older and, you know, waving around swords. So I think there was that, but it was probably never quit. It was probably just like, all right, let's
he'd
do
be
it
like a
differently.
sleazy on the side character or whatever.
Yeah. Let's just do it differently and smarter and give ourselves more space as we get older to keep doing it.
Sure. Interesting. Yeah.
That's what I thought anyway.
This is what's coming up next. This is coming up pretty soon, right?
Yeah, a couple months. Man, I better start playing.
I know. I gotta pick a show to go to because you're not coming to New York or New Jersey proper on this tour, so I gotta figure it out.
We'll definitely be there in the fall, though. We'll have something big planned for the 40th in the fall. So
I'm excited for that. I'll definitely try to hit one of these up. Do you know any of the guys in Static X, or like what was the connection there?
I don't. I know our old tour manager, Eddie Ortel, Dr. Evil.
Yeah, I've met him before, sure.
Yeah, Eddie was tour managing Static X at the time, and he was tour managing us, and he does Cold Chamber and Devil Driver and POD. Like, he's around that circle. So when this kind of came up, our management, bookers, Live Nation kind of put it together like, hey, why don't we, you know, team up, get a little bit bigger show, maybe some bigger rooms, bigger look, you know, Live Nation's behind it with the both of us on it. And so that's something really good. GWAR's always trying to, like you said, we're trying to get new fans all the time. and GWAR's a really difficult animal to have open up for a bigger band because of all of our stuff. But we managed to do really good on festivals and Mudvayne tours.
I saw 2 of those Mudvayne shows.
This stuff is on and off quick and clean, just like any other show. So it's not, we've geared the production down so that we can actually do an opening slot. But there's obviously, with our reputation, there's still some resistance, to actually get, us to open for a bigger band, like maybe Judas Priest or whoever. It could be anybody, right? That's just on a larger stage than GWAR, which we would love to do, because that means it just opens our audience, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So we're still looking to do that. Live Nation is helping with that. Our guys in GWAR have done an excellent job of curating a show and the spew and all the things and the logistics so that they're real tight and we can just do things like that. So
yeah, for sure. And then of course here's the solo dates kind of in between that, right?
Yeah,
and then
we had to fill in some dates just because the Static X didn't take us to a couple of the areas we needed in the festival. There's a few festivals in there, so we had to connect the dots.
Yeah. And then you're saying after these tours, there's going to be something bigger, like a 40th anniversary tour later on in the year?
Yeah, obviously GWAR usually tours around Halloween. That'll be a big time. And yeah, you'll see us. You'll see us all year. So New York will get a chance for sure.
Here's what I'm excited about, and this is a New York show. The return of ROG, huh? Yo, we're gonna be on a boat.
We are. You going?
Yeah, I'm going.
Cool.
I'll be there. When's the last time ROG played? I know you guys were supposed to play at St. Vitus a couple years ago, and of course COVID happened and all that.
Yeah, the pandemic. It was actually for this. It was Freeman. It was for our publicist, 15th year in business or whatever.
Yeah, John's really good to me.
Yep. So now we're finally getting to it.
Gets me those photo passes and everything too, because I'm a photographer. So.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Any chances of GWAR touring with Green Jello? Well, was there ever a plan for that in the past?
No.
Not
The
really.
story of Green Jello is, I know my version of it from way back. Obviously, Don and a couple of guys in GWAR taught Bill Manspeaker how to make that stuff.
Yeah.
So they
I'm a member of Green Jello as well, just so you know.
Yeah, they gave away a trade secret, to help Bill make some of those costumes back in the day, and we used to play a lot of shows with them because Danny Carey from Tool was their drummer.
Yep.
So
yeah,
the way I understood it, Danny's responsibility was to that, and he had Tool on the side, which he was cultivating. But
and Pygmy Love Circus as well.
Yeah, I think it was like Zoo Entertainment, which is like a little startup label at the time. They really wanted Tool or whatever. But Danny was like, well, I got to do the Green Jelly thing first. And they were like, well, we'll sign Green Jelly too and give them Little Pigs, which was a huge hit for them. So just to get the Tool through Danny, I think everybody got signed and got to do some songs, which is great.
See, Tool should take you on tour.
Well, I think the show you're talking about, the Palladium, Tool opened up.
No, Green Jello opened.
Was it Green Jello?
It was Green Jello, Henry Rollins Band, and Fluid.
Yeah, I remember another show where I think where Tool played in front of us too.
Oh yeah, I don't know about that one. That's cool.
Right.
I believe it.
Right as Opiate, like they just finished the EP. Yeah, they were just out of the basement. We go over to Danny's place where they practice, and he had the nice place on Sunset Strip.
Wow.
Where they practiced, and like Maynard was like sleeping in Bill's closet or something.
Yeah, they were roommates or whatever.
Yeah. I was like, oh, that band's gonna do something for sure. I was like, what are you doing in Green? Right? What are you doing in Green Jelly still? He's like, man, I got all these things. I want to do them all.
Yeah.
Your guy's like, I want to do all this stuff. So he did. He did.
Okay, I think that's about it. You know what? I got an email yesterday or the day before from Jim Thompson.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, perfect, because this is like a drummer centric show that we're doing today. And he's got something to promote. He's got this benefit for the fires in LA on Bandcamp. Battle for LA. He's on a song with some guys from Animal Collective. So go check that out. Jim Thompson, he's been on the show before.
Yeah, one of the original GWAR drummers.
So go check it out. It's let's see, the link here is Bandcamp or c-saw.fun. That's all spelled out .bandcamp.com. check it out. Battle for LA, benefit for the fires. Okay, so I always end the show with this question. Can you just share like a really great Dave moment that maybe nobody's ever heard about, or something special to you, or something really funny?
You asked that every character has been, every guy in GWAR has been on.
I try, yeah. You know what? I just asked Hunter Jackson that the other day.
I didn't watch. I'm sorry to say, I didn't watch the end of their shows. I watched a few, but I never knew that this was the ending.
Oh wow! Well, it's a surprise then for you.
Yeah. Dave Brock. Yeah, the first time I ever saw Dave at PB Kelly's at my first hardcore show, and it's hot. It's summer. It's CFC show, and everyone's got their shirt off. The pit is swirling. It's a tiny club. There's grime and grit and beer shit all over the place. There's no such thing as bottled water in these days. They just have these pitchers of water set on the stage for the bands and whoever. And I remember everyone's pissed at Dave because he's like slam dancing the wrong way in the pit, and he's going against the grain. He's got beer grime all over his torso. He's half naked. And he's like drinking out of a pitcher. My friend Joey, the other drummer from Graven Image, he's like, don't ever drink after Dave Rocky. And I just remember he was the most craziest dude in the room, in the pit at the time. Having the most
playing in a
fun.
band that night, or just he was just there?
He was just there at the show. He was having the most fun. Everyone was having a point your finger bullshit time saying he's slam dancing the wrong way. And, what hardcore and punk, what you weren't supposed to be conformists, but that's what they all were. They all had the same fucking hair and leather jackets and all that shit. And Dave just didn't care about any of that. And I was looked at him and everyone's mad at him. I was like, man, I got to be in a band with that guy one day. And it actually happened.
Wow.
That was the first time I met Dave.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Well, I think we did it. Thank you, Brad. This is so cool. I don't think you've ever had an interview this long, so I'm, honored to have you.
Hey, well, thanks for keeping the GWAR name alive with the GWAR podcast.
Hey.
More power to you. Get our message out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
This year's gonna be big. 40 years of GWAR. You're not gonna. You're not gonna want to miss it.
I'm gonna have to bring this and get you to autograph this. Okay. I got some of them at the X-Cop show, but
right on.
It's like. Usually you sign your character name. I want your real name on this one, It's a rare opportunity for that kind of thing.
All right,
man. Well, thank you so much. I don't have anything booked right now, but you guys know where to follow me at GWARPod on all the things, and go follow GWAR, GWAR.net. Go buy some tickets for the Static X tour, and I don't know if there's any tickets for that Rock Boat show, but if there is, I'll see you guys there.
Yeah, everything you need to know about GWAR is at GWAR.net.
GWAR.net. Go buy some.
If you're probably watching this, you might already be dead.
Oh, yes. Well, see you in the afterlife.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye. Like, share, subscribe, comment below. Help me with the algorithm. Share this with your friends. Do all the things. All right. Let's play the outro. Goodbye, everybody.
Like, share, subscribe.